And Slanjivar, my fellow Zenites, what an amazing day we're having. Again, Admiral Rodney Rum, more on that story later. Well, we have an exciting broadcast today because later on in the program, hopefully we'll be connecting with Crypto Heartbeat. Those of you who have been following his channel know all about him, but I'll let him introduce himself in about 15 minutes time. Meanwhile, the state of the economy seems to be getting worse and worse. The inflation figures out for the rest of the world are scary indeed. So what does it all mean for you and I? Well, of course, the dollar in our pocket, we should now understand, is not strong. It's only strong against other currencies. It is not strong in your pocket. In fact, it's currently worth 22% less than it was this time a year ago. Look, gas in California is over $7 a gallon, let alone anything else. And we haven't reached peak energy yet during the winter. Energy costs are going to go up even further. And what that means is everything goes up because everything is energy related. Food production, food transportation, food delivery, anything that you can think of involves transportation, which necessarily means that everything is going to go up. Inflation is going to keep roaring ahead. Now, here's the really scary thing, is that the Federal Reserve has no tools to deal with this. I keep saying over and over again, the biggest problem is that they only have a sledgehammer. And what they're doing at the moment is using that sledgehammer and piling on the interest rate. Now, what's going to be very interesting to watch is the next meeting. And if they don't raise the interest rates again by another 75 basis points, which I think they pretty much will, but if they didn't, then the surprising thing about that is that a lot of people have been calling for a reversal in Jerome Powell's stance because he has a history of that. Well, we will see. And if 75 basis points is it, this is the really scary part. What that means is he is going to stick to his guns. Their stated aim is to raise interest rates above 4% for the rest of the year, but more importantly, to keep them there, which means that as the world economies collapse, the interest rate in the United States is going to keep going up. And even if he stabilizes just above 4%, it's dire for the economy. It's dire for everybody in the United States because it means that we will fast approach a huge depression. Now, the Fed has said that we need it. We need to have a crash. We need to have a crash in the housing market. We need to have a crash in the stock market. And we need the banks. Well, listen, if you keep your money in the bank, let's say that you're completely risk averse and you really think that putting it in the bank is the safest place for your money. Let me just remind you of what happened in 2008, because we are fast approaching similar conditions today. The global economic crisis of 2008 cost tens of millions of people their savings, their jobs, and their homes. The global economic crisis of 2008 cost tens of millions of people their savings, their jobs, and their homes. Iceland is a stable democracy with a high standard of living, until recently extremely low unemployment and government debt. But in 2000, the government deregulated the banks, which would have disastrous consequences. These three tiny banks, which had never traded outside of Iceland before, managed to rack up debts of 120 billion, which is 10 times the economy of Iceland, leaving not only its citizens bankrupt, but the entire country. Trillions of dollars of ordinary people's money is locked up in banks around the world in time deposit accounts. And what if one morning you woke up to find the money you thought was yours in the bank actually belonged to the government? This is exactly what happened to those citizens in Cyprus.
This is a country where tonight you can't cash a cheque. You can't get more than 300 euros out of the bank per day. And let's make this brutally concrete. It's never a good idea to wave cash around on the street, but this is what a grand looks like in euros. This is 1,000 euros, and if tomorrow I go to the airport and leave this country with that and the loose change in my pocket, I'm breaking the law, because that's the limit on the cash you can take out of the country. People with fixed term deposits, they're saving the money for 12, 18 months, will be told they have to keep that money in there.
So it doesn't look very good. However, there is an alternative view to this, and I'm not one of these scaremongers, and I believe that there is an alternative way forward. You see, the problem is with inflation, you can't print houses. You can't print anything except money. And this is the interesting point. What's gone wrong is that the governments now have control of the money supply. And how did that happen? Well, during the C word epidemic, that's when they took control. How? By guaranteeing bank loans. The governments are now in control about where the money goes, not central banks. This is a terribly, terribly, terribly bad idea. And it's going to get worse and worse in that regard. And here's an alternative view to what might happen. We might not get to that point of huge depression, because the governments might just step in and realize that they could do the same thing as they did after the Second World War. And that is to have a huge capital expansion project where the government itself, remember they're now in control of money, they start spending money on government projects. This is exactly what they did after the Second World War to stimulate demand. And remember, inflation is a product of demand and no supply. But if you boost production by spending on capital products, you can reduce inflation that way. And that is an alternative to what the Federal Reserve is trying to do. And so that may very well pivot towards the middle or the end of next year. And what that means is, for us in the crypto world, that we're faced with at least another 12 months, if not more, of a crypto bear market. To continue this discussion, I'm now going to hand over to Crypto Heartbeat. So bear with me as we just switch over to his channel. Okay, so we're just waiting for Crypto Heartbeat to appear, and he should be along any second. Of course, Crypto Heartbeat is a Hexagon as well as myself, and I believe he didn't invest right at the very beginning of Hex. Clearly, he didn't watch my channels at the very beginning, but I know that he did invest before the big payday event. Matt has a very interesting background in that he has huge experience in charity works and in getting donations to various different organizations, and I know he's been doing that for a number of years. I'm going to be very interested to hear his views on charities and also, of course, his new token, the Texan token, which is all about helping to fund the creation of Texas as a separate country, as it once was. So, without further ado, here comes Crypto Hotbeat.
Hey folks, welcome back to The Pulse. My name's Matt, and you kids get off my lawn. That's what Conrad Zen and I are going to say. I'll tell you what, two gray-haired guys getting together to talk about crypto is what I'm talking about. This is what I've been waiting for a long time. I started this channel a year ago, and Conrad Zen has been on my list since the very beginning. And so I was so excited. A couple months ago, he reached out and said, hey, let's do this. And we're officially doing it today. And I'm really excited about that. You know, Conrad Zen was one of the guys I started following when I first got into Hex. I mean, he was talking to Richard. He was literally right there. Love watching him with his driver in his, I'm not sure if it's a Maybach, but it's awesome. And just seeing the things that that Conrad Zen has done. And then, of course, now he's launched his own crypto. And so we're going to dig into that. But, folks, I just want you to know, you know, community is everything. And I warmly greet Conrad Zen on this channel because he is a fellow Hexican, and I just I'm excited. I'm excited about learning more about what he's doing, learning more about who he is, but also just sharing some time together as folks that are recognize that this financial system is literally burning to the ground, and that we are the future of this new economic system. So, folks, without further ado, welcome to The Pulse. Conrad Zen. What's up, Conrad Zen?
And Slanjivar, my fellow Pulsicans and Zenites and Texits. Look, we're all part of the same family.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Cheers to you.
Just to start off, here's a tenuous link. This is a breakfast rum, which you probably can't see because
put it right in front of your eyes. So that
it is. It's actually a blur function. Anyway, it's Admiral Sir Rodney rum, which is brewed in St. Lucia. Now, the tenuous connection here is that Battle of the Saints was instrumental during the negotiations of American independence. Because the British, having routed the French, went to the peace talks in Paris thinking that they had the upper hand. Little did they know that they knew nothing of the intercommunications between all the other communities, and they came away having lost nearly every single territory in the Caribbean. So Slanjivar Admiral Rodney, who lost everything.
Yes, there you go. Oh my gosh, that is so great. Well, Conrad, I really appreciate you taking the time. I know that, you know, we have a number of things in common outside of our gray hair, but I'd love to just kind of ask you some questions and I want to dig into PZEN and help folks understand what that's all about. Because I feel like, this is a really finicky community, and we're seeing a lot of bizarre things happening right now because we've waited about a year for the pulse chain.
Exactly.
And so I just want to give me a little feel for, you've been in crypto for quite some time, and you're a huge advocate for cryptocurrency freeing people from bondage. Can you kind of give me an overview, kind of that history and what you want to share with folks about your background?
Sure. Well, I don't want to bore people because I think it's more important that they realize, what the information that we're going to give them, what's in it for them, rather than two old guys talking about our past lives, which are
like
huge, but
Yeah,
maybe
people
not
like you.
interesting
That's
to other people. But just briefly my background then, I'm very old. And so I've had many careers. I was a banker. I was an investment advisor. I've been a programmer. I was a senior training captain. I trained most of the 747 pilots in the entire planet. And then, of course, none of that actually made me any money. And so I've always been one who's been able to understand how you take 2 + 2 and make it equal 5. So I was very lucky early on, not in cryptocurrency, but actually in property. And I'll tell you another story. I'm extremely grateful for late night commercials, advertorials in America, because I used to spend a lot of time awake, jet lagged, watching these things. What do you call them? Infomercials, right?
Yeah, infomercials. Yeah.
And I remember watching a guy called Carlton Sheets, No Money Down. I don't know whether you remember all that sort of thing.
I do. I remember that.
Right. So I was actually living in the UK at that time. And I applied those principles to the UK market, and I couldn't believe it. And one of the things that he taught me was about having a reverse mortgage. If you owned a house, you could actually sell it to somebody with a mortgage and earn interest, not just the principal. And that blew my mind. That and one other thing, I realized very early on that in the UK, when you sign a contract to buy a house, you sign a contract and it's called exchange of contracts. Now, from that moment on, you own the house. It's not at completion. So I suddenly realized, hang on a minute, I can leverage this up to the maximum because all I've done is put my 10% down, which I didn't even put down, the bank did. Oh my God, I remember going to the bank and negotiating my first £1 million loan. My God. Anyway, so that's how I started. That's how I created my wealth. Then I stopped working, and then I found Bitcoin. Now, to me, I always thought, there's something wrong with the system. There's something wrong. I'm not a libertarian by heart. I am a profit maximalist by heart. There's no question. So I saw this as not a way out of the system, but a way of making the system better. And what I came up with is the idea, well, in order for Bitcoin to work as a payment system, people have to accept it as payment. So I spent my entire efforts getting merchants to actually use these little handheld machines to actually take Bitcoin for payment. Oh my God.
Oh, wow.
All right. So that's what I did. And then, of course, I applied to the Bitcoin Foundation because for me personally, I wanted that credence. I wanted, well, I'm a Bitcoin Foundation member. I was, of course, the only way that I got in was money. At that time, they needed funding, and I was quite happy to fund because I thought that was an investment in what I was doing. And I think I was telling you earlier on, it was pretty much a non-event for me, really. I joined in 2014. Kevin Beardsley was the man who admitted me. Thank you very much, Kevin. But very quickly, it started to all go wrong. Lots of infighting in the community. Does that ring a bell at all? Lots of infighting in the community. And of course, it got horribly, terribly wrong. And of course, people like Cody Wilson came in, and basically the whole foundation kind of just collapsed on its own. Charlie Shrem was arrested and all that sort of jazz, Mark Capellas, all that sort of stuff. So for me, it was pretty much a non-event, but I'm glad that I can say I was a former Bitcoin Foundation member, and it got me into crypto, which is, I'm extremely thankful. But more than that, I recognize the value, I recognize where this was going to go, and I would just tell as many people as I possibly could, listen, this is the future. And I think you have a similar background, I'm sure. Yeah. And from that moment on, it just became my life.
When did you first hear about Richard Hart? Because that must have been early on.
Yeah, it was early on. Now, I never got into anything to do with the ICO phase craze.
Okay.
I just thought that was particularly crazy. The valuations that were going on for what they were shilling, mostly 99.9%, it just didn't make sense to me at all. So I stepped away from it. But then I get bored very easily. And just one day I happened to watch this guy talking about this currency called Hex. And it piqued my interest because he was talking about terms I didn't quite understand, T-shares and stuff like that. And I thought, I haven't heard that before. That sounds really interesting. And that's when I started to do a bit of research. Now, bear in mind at the time that I'm an ex-traditional finance guy. Lots of friends of mine are traditional, finance guys. So I went off and said, this is the way forward. This is it. And they said, well, you told us it was Bitcoin. Yeah, it was Bitcoin, but now there's something better, right? And so I started shilling Hex. In fact, I bought Hex. I bought a lot of Hex right at the very, very beginning. But I have to confess one thing. My so-called investment gurus fudded me out. And they said, this guy, this whole project is stupid. It's crazy. You need to get out. And I did. And I left it alone for about 3 days because I couldn't sleep. And then I realized, you guys are all wrong again. And I bought back in. And I never looked back since. That's for sure.
Wow, that's a great story. That's why people want to watch this, Conrad, is they want to hear those stories.
Well,
And it is definitely interesting to us and to me. So, I noticed that in those early days, you streamed with Richard a couple times. Is that right?
I think I did, yes.
Yeah. And so obviously, when I came into the market, you were the only guy that I could kind of relate to. A lot of young guys were in it, and I was watching you and saw some different people. And I thought, you know what? We need some more gray hair in this. And, you're part of the reason that I jumped in and decided to do some of this. But
you're very welcome, by the way.
Thank you. And so I'm really curious, here you are. I saw your first stream for PZEN. I don't know where I was, but I literally saw you on the beach, and I just check in on you whenever you're streaming, and you talk about this crypto that you're starting called PZEN. And I know it kind of had a little bit of a rocky start, but I was one of the things I want to relate to people, are saying stuff in the chat and all this. I look at people, and I would say the thing I've learned over my years of investment is I don't invest in projects. I invest in people, right? I have to trust people. And you've built a lot of trust with a lot of people over the years, and you have been very consistent. And so I think that I want on this stream to folks to really understand what PZEN is and really why this is different than what they may have thought. And I want to address some of the issues of what Richard said and what people are seeing in the community, because I kind of want to put that to bed, because you're putting your credibility and your persona and your relationships on
and my bank balance.
Yeah, and your bank balance. And so, people don't just do this I think at your age with your success to scam someone. You're here to actually provide value. So that's what I believe, and I want you to have that opportunity to share about PZEN.
Well, that's very kind of you, Matt. And again, I'm not going to focus on me. I want to focus on the opportunity that is PZEN. Yeah. Now, it was never supposed to be launched. Now, I promised everybody that I would come up with a capital injection coin. That's what I said that I would do for people, because at the time, things were collapsing around us. We all know that. Price of Hex had gone down, and that was all, and I still believe it's all because of what happened to Pulse Chain. We all know it's been delayed massively. Now, you can conjecture about the reasons why. It's not important. What is important, it is delayed. So I took the action, and that's what I'm known for, is I'm very much imperfect action above perfection, because perfection never gets done. You will never reach perfection. So I took the decision to launch PZEN on the day that you said that you're watching that stream. Now, unbeknownst to me at the time, there was a little issue. And the little issue was I wasn't contactable. I had no internet. I used to go down to this beach bar in order to have internet. And then they stopped having internet, couldn't reach anybody, couldn't talk to anybody, because there was one vital component that was missing at the very, very beginning, which I'm sure that people understand. But it didn't matter. It didn't matter, actually. It's just that people took that to be a indication that Conrad Zen was a scammer had launched a scam coin. Now, I have to say that when I first saw what was happening, I very quickly realized as a marketing professional that actually that's not too bad a thing. Now, of course, when the founder of the coin that you've been shilling for 2 years and 500 videos later comes on and says, PZEN, it's a scam. Now, again, you can take that in one of two ways. I don't blame Richard at all for why he said that. Somebody whispered in his ear, Conrad Zen is scamming people, he's rug pulling, and he just said, blah, 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 blah. And that got back to me, and I thought, oh my God, have I been scammed? Not realizing what had actually happened. So then I relaxed and let it all carry on. But of course, from then on in, people were very confused, and I'm going to say deliberately, because, crypto, there aren't that many great ideas that are unique. In fact, in crypto, everything is copy and paste, pretty much, right? There are very few ideas that have not been done before. And so we looked at everything that might work in a very simplistic way. And one of the protocols, of course, is SafeMoon. And we saw what the problems were with SafeMoon and all the rest of them, but also the power of compound interest and time, which I'm sure you're very well aware of, and probably have incorporated that into your own token as well, because it is the eighth wonder of the world. And I'm just going to go, if you wouldn't mind, I'll just go very briefly into how that works with PZEN. PZEN has a pay it forward function. I'm one of these guys, rather like you as well, I would suggest, that you need to give back, because when you give, you receive probably more than the person who receives. I'm sure that resonates with you as well.
Oh, absolutely.
And I've done that all my life. And I just thought, wow, wouldn't it be great if we could incorporate a wealth redistribution system into a system which also does good for other people in communities. That's why it was designed this way. So we have the pay it forward function. Call it what you will. It's a pay it forward function. That 2% deduction on every transaction, so be it a buy, a sell, or a transfer between wallets, because Solidity doesn't make any distinction. It's a transaction, whatever you're doing. That pay it forward deduction occurs. So what that means is it gets into a pool which is then distributed according to the percentage of the total supply that you happen to own. But not only that, people don't understand this bit. It doesn't compound monthly or even weekly. It compounds after every transaction. Because let's say, for the sake of argument, that you were early, and you managed to accumulate 1 million PZEN for a very small price, okay? Your 1 million PZEN is currently earning you, and these are only approximate figures, about 250 PZEN per day. You can't really work it out because it's very approximate. But what it means is, in the very next transaction that occurs, your percentage of the market total supply went up, because now you own 1,250,000. So it means that the very next transaction, your investment is compounded. It's a compounding reward system.
Yep.
On steroids. But not only that, the people still don't understand how this protocol works. They're comparing it to all sorts of inferior products. It works even better than that, because there is the burn function. The whole thing is totally deflationary. So after every transaction, 0.01% is burnt forever. It just disappears. But of course, it's important to understand that what that means is your percentage of the market share just went up. So not only are you getting a compound after every transaction because you own more of the market share just decreased at the same time.
Yep.
That is the magic of compounding rewards on steroids. And that is the basic function of PulseZen, and I'll say it again, PZEN. You know what I'm talking about.
The confusion, yeah.
And that's it. But more than that, I'm going to segue into you now, because I've talked way too much. we also wanted to help other people through this protocol. And it has a charity wallet as well, which means that for every transaction, 0.2% gets allocated to that wallet. And at the end of the year, there will be a DAO vote to where that money gets distributed. And so far, I'm not sure, I haven't really looked today, but there's about, we've only been going a couple of weeks. There's about $50,000 in there already. So by the end of the year, there's going to be a substantial, not huge, not Richard Hart, 27 million. By the way, it wasn't Richard Hart's money, by the way, not knocking it, but it was our money.
Right.
27 million. But we've got a lot of money that everybody gets a say in where it goes. And even if you don't have a say, if you don't vote or whatever, you are part of this community that is not only growing wealth for yourself and your family, you are helping other people. And for me, I couldn't see a better reason to create a cryptocurrency at this time, whilst we wait for Pulse Chain to be launched.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I'm going to give you I got some questions, but also some commentary on this because I followed SafeMoon, I followed reflection tokens, and this idea that, the core elements, and this is really for folks that are watching here, is that when you're considering a project, as we have done, as Conrad has done, as many other people have done, I think Conrad is right when he says there's only so many types of things you can do. One of the things, for example, is if you have staking, people assume you're hex, right? Well, that has come up with us in Texan Token many times. So you think about this, there are some basic principles, like you're talking about the eighth wonder of the world, which would be compounding interest. But this idea of how does your money work for you? And when you're looking at how do you program money, one of the things Richard said in the very first Bitcoin Hex talk that he did was he said, if you're going to program the money, the first thing you need to do is program in interest. And so when I saw what you were doing and I saw the SafeMoon thing, the thing people need to understand about SafeMoon, and if you followed it...
By the way, can I just interrupt? There is no code of SafeMoon in our code.
There's none?
None.
Okay, because David Feeder had done a research on it. He compared the two.
Listen, Mr. David Feeder, you still have your beard on, sir. Why do you still have your beard on? You promised that you'd shave that beard off if PZEN did a 10x and stayed there and wasn't rug pulled.
Boom. All right.
Okay, look, I just want to say something about David. I love David.
Sure.
Okay, great guy. But he made a fatal mistake. I don't think he's actually a coder. He didn't read the code. What he read was the comments. Well, guess what? Those comments, well, they kind of don't make sense.
Gotcha. So I guess the point I'm making is actually a positive, and that is the big issues with SafeMoon was what is not in the PZEN contract, and that is related to liquidity. They were actually pushing each time part of the fees on the reflection into the LP. And this is where all the trouble happened for SafeMoon. And so when we talk about reflection tokens and those things, I've looked at this intensely because we've planned to, we built a contract from
course,
scratch.
you look at everything, right?
And you look at those things and you go, okay, so I want to share my perspective on what reflection means. What Conrad just said was that, hey, if I own a portion of this, each transaction is going to pay me more, right? The more I hold, the more that I earn. It's actually the reverse of staking, meaning that you're getting those returns by holding and you don't have to stake your tokens. So you hold them liquid. So in a way, a reflection token is doing the opposite, but the same impact of staking, but it's a different function. And I think a lot of people, they hear a lot of buzzwords and they hear a lot of things and they prejudge things. One of the things I always want to communicate with people is that it's really important. Trust is built by people and code is law. And I was concerned, honestly, Conrad, when there was a bit of a bug and some concerns about V3, but it was clearly explained by you what that was. The issue with most of rug pulls and scams are people, not code.
Absolutely.
Okay, it's not
Couldn't
code
agree more.
that rug pulls. It's
Totally.
people who do. And when I look at you, Conrad, and I've seen all the 500 videos you've done, and I understand Richard doesn't want to promote anything he didn't create. And honestly, him creating the Pulse Chain has created a lot of potential competition. At the end of the day, we have a much, much bigger thing we're doing here with the Pulse Chain. It is, in my opinion, standing up to this legacy system. It's standing up to, authoritarians and globalists. And to me, working together towards that is what I want to see us do. So when I look at PZEN, I look at the code and I understand those things, and I'm actually going to go back because I was under the assumption that it actually was a modification of SafeMoon. So that's good to know. But the more important thing is, do I trust Conrad Zen? And that was the question that I asked from the very minute. And I've been watching you for over a year. And so I just want people to relate to the fact that, the way I got into crypto was very simple. I saw an ad at 2 a.m. I saw Richard Hart. He did the voiceover for this thing. Would you like to be rich? And I saw it, and guess what I did? I put the same amount of money into Hex as I did into PZEN. I saw it, and I said, you know what? I'm not going to put anything into anything I'm not willing to lose.
Oh my God, you're the whale.
I took $600 and I put it into Hex, and it was 2 days before big payday. And it went up 25x, and I bought my daughter a car. And that's how crypto proved itself to me, right?
Absolutely.
Very simply, right?
Absolutely.
Well, when I saw you're like, hey, I'm doing this thing. I didn't know anything about the code. I knew Conrad Zen's doing a token, and I got $600. I'm not somebody that came in for 600 million, but the point is, I want to show support for people who have been giving to me. I've learned a lot from you. I've learned a lot from the community. Does this mean that, I'm going to go out and shill PZEN, until I die? No. But at the end of the day, this community, you got to pick a horse to ride. And to me, trust is built by people, not code. So I just want to make sure that's clear. That's my perspective as I look at things. And the people that want to fudge you out and all that stuff, it's really, in my opinion, you have zero motive to scam anyone. That's how I see it. And so to me, pick a horse to ride, people. You don't have to like everything.
Yeah, I would totally agree with you. And I've always said it's one of Conrad's laws. If you're not already wealthy, just pick one horse and back it to the hilt. Do your own research. When you are wealthy, now you can afford to diversify. And look, I would never bash any other protocol, no matter how sketchy I think it is. Because if one fails, we all fail, because it means that the regulators are going to come piling down on everybody because of one bad apple. So you won't hear me fighting any other project, like I say, even though some of them are pretty sketchy. And the other thing about it is, the one thing that people need to understand is, everybody is coming from a mindset of scarcity. And I keep trying to push this point home. There is no scarcity of money, folks. There's more money sloshing around in the system than there ever has been. It's just that it's not in your pocket, which is why we need a better redistribution system. Look, everybody wakes up every day and thinks, do you know what, there's something wrong here, but they can't put a finger on it. They don't understand what is happening underneath their very nose. You are being controlled. You are being manipulated. And the only way out is to opt out of this rotten system. I don't know what you think or what anybody thinks about Donald Trump. You love him or you hate him. The one thing that he did for American politics was expose how dirty and vicious it is. Look, I won't knock America because, look, I lived there for half the year. So, but I will say this. It took me a long time to understand that this country, this great country of yours, it's not mine, I live there, is a corporatocracy. You are totally controlled by corporations. And that's what's gone terribly, terribly wrong with America. You are not governed, you are controlled by lobbyists, specialist lobbyists. And that's not going to go away anytime soon. It's just going to get worse. And so we are very lucky to be at a confluence in history where everybody realizes there's something not right, but now there is something that you can do. Look, everybody knows or should know that he who controls the money controls the people. And if you can opt out and take control of your own money in an alternate system that you trust, then you're halfway there. You're halfway there to taking back control of your own life. I'm sure that you would agree.
Yeah. Oh, no, there's no question about it. And I look at, the work that we're doing in Texas and what we're seeing with, politics in this world. I mean, people are in the streets. And so freedom and sovereignty is the name of the game to me. And that's the thing. There's, you make a great point about scarcity versus abundance. All of our wars, all of these conflicts are built around this idea that there's not enough to go around.
Exactly.
you make a really good point that, yeah, have accumulated. Centralization is one of the biggest issues that is, that occurs, right? Is that people want to celebrate, they want to centralize, and they do not ever want to let go of that power and those resources. And I look at crypto and I see this opportunity for people who are willing to engage with contracts, whether that be Hex, anything on Pulse Chain, PZEN, Texan, whatever it may be. There's a lot of different things that you can look at, but at the end of the day, this entire asset class of crypto has the power to set people free from the bondage of that
Absolutely.
slavery.
And you make a very good point there about the code. People say, well, fudding me out and stuff. You're not fudding me out at all. What does upset me is when you FUD other people out from a genuine opportunity. That's what I don't like. And look, there are different tokens for different people. Not everybody is going to benefit from investing in Hex. I mean, I've got stakes that are going to mature when I die. Okay? But the fact of the matter is there are some people that can't wait that long. There are some people that are not going to benefit from staking at all. Because, like you pointed out, and I do want to get to your token, by the way, like we pointed out, you get compounding interest, compounding rewards through PZEN without locking up your tokens and without staking. Because especially over the next 2, 3, 5 years, everybody's circumstance could change dramatically. And having control over your own money is going to be absolutely key in my view. Now, look, I am a very big Hex supporter. Of course I am. I've been doing it for 2 years. I probably own more Hex than all of the people that are in the chat right now. So come on. But it's not for everybody. And just like PZEN is not for everybody either. But you can't start bashing other protocols. It's stupid. It's not about that. Sorry, they're not bashing the protocol really. They're bashing the personalities behind the code, which is crazy. I'm sorry, but you just cannot argue with code.
Well, and one of the big things that always comes up is, you're coming in diluting the market that could have gone to Hex. And I think it's really interesting. Yeah, it's total scarcity mentality. It's this idea there's not enough to go around. So I want to point out what is obvious, and that is Hex may have, probably 150 to 200,000 individual people representing about 400,000 wallets. Okay, so there's $1.2 billion staked, and it's for 7 years. This is a miracle, right? To me, the whole Hexagon engagement, community is amazing. It's a miracle. But at the end of the day, there's 8+ billion people on the planet. This next bull run,
8 billion next week.
The most mainstream, right? We're going to see things change dramatically, especially because of the CBDCs and the governments wanting to go outside of cash, right? They want to control things with digital dollars or digital currencies in general. This is going to push people, that are not into crypto to understand it and have to understand it. But DeFi, and to me, that's the big thing. You've got no admin keys. You've got immutability. You've got these tools. These are going to be the horses that people will ride. And I think that you make a really good point, and that is, if this whole asset class is going to grow to like the bond market or real estate, about 200 trillion, this is an opportunity. We're sitting at 1 trillion right now. If we're going to see this kind of 200x of this, in the next, let's say 20 years, the opportunities are abundant. And it's really about onboarding people into this marketplace, right? There's people that are doing things based on meme ideas, right? Dogecoin and, people utilizing all sorts of different conventions. But at the end of the day, I went through the .com era, right? Everybody had a PowerPoint presentation and everybody had a sock puppet, right? They thought, oh, I'm going to win. And money was thrown at these people. But really the ones that survived were the ones that actually created value and built community. And that's the essence of what makes cryptocurrency work, in my opinion. And so when you have someone like Conrad, myself, Brandon, whatever it may be, is that there are going to be a lot of things in the Pulse chain, projects that disappear. And it's because people want to identify with people in community to understand if they trust something. People don't just look at zeros and ones in code and go, well, got it. Because there are great projects out there with great coders and great code. The problem is they can't communicate to save their lives. And the problem is they can't build relationships and know what the connective tissue, which actually brings the value in community. That's something that Richard Hart has that so few people have. And you look at this, you look at, there are different personalities to different tokens, even at the top, right? Monero is a great example of this. There's different personalities that resonate with different people. So you got to find the right trusted community that you like and you can relate to. Hex really, really appeals to blue collar people. It was led by a pirate. I mean, that's why I identified with it. These were regular, common people. It wasn't just, people from, Wall Street bankers. It was regular people, and I can relate to that and associate with that. So you have to understand there's a lot more dynamics than just code here. And, that's why I look at this and I go, the rising tide lifts all these boats. And I'm welcoming you and what you're doing, Conrad, because the key things to me, you've already confirmed. Number one, there's no admin keys and it's immutable. That's all I need to hear at the basis level, right? That you're not able to go in and change the code. And so if it's not a SafeMoon copy, I love the tokenomics. It's basically staking without staking. And I wish you all the best.
Well, thank you very much. And, as I say, it's not for me. It's for the people.
Yeah.
Clearly, I was able to facilitate it. I was the one that took action, as you did. And that's what it needs. And it's up to everybody else now to decide which flavor they like. It's as simple as that. So long as you understand that these opportunities, as you just said, they're right there in front of you. You have to take a leap of faith. You really do. And look, getting into crypto is not easy. It takes some education, unfortunately. And that's always going to be the case because the governments know that is the only way they can control this. So, it's up to, people like you and I to continually educate people, and I'm sure you're going to loop back to that in a minute, how to get into crypto. It's as simple as that. It's the only way out. It is not going to go away. There's no question. It's here forever. It's been born. It's like when you push the button to get the token out there. You can't take it back. You can't go away. It's going to live forever, whatever happens to you.
Well, and we're seeing that right now in our community right now with something that's called Zen, right? That could be confusing.
Oh, you said that word.
I'm sorry. Well, PZEN, PulseZen.
No. Don't get them confused. Do not get them confused. No, but it's a sad thing that people are getting them confused. Some people deliberately, because they're trying to promote, which is a sketchy product to mine, which, Okay, carry on anyway. Carry on.
Example. It's a perfect example of the fact that anyone can put anything out there. The question is, can you build community? And to me, that's the key.
Even somebody who purports to have credibility because they were good at something else doesn't make you good at this sort of stuff.
Right, and that's and what's interesting is I interviewed Jack in the earlier days before he had started things, and at the end of the day, I'm a fan of people creating things.
Absolutely.
You have to do your own research. We don't give any advice on financial stuff. So in a way, it's like, are there people that are easily fooled? Absolutely. That's why you should do your own research. But I talked to so many Hexicans. And Conrad, if I can tell you one thing that was consistent across all of these Hexican interviews I've done is this. In 2018, I rode the market down and I got scammed. And when they sat in that that bear market, the last bear market that we had, they were like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? And Richard Hart was crying out in the wilderness. And what I noticed about every OG Hexican I've ever talked to is they learned the hard way. And I would say this, if you haven't experienced a bear market before, there's many people that are Hex OGs who've experienced 3. This is their 3rd bear market.
And there are many more who've never experienced a bear market. And unfortunately, we're in it.
Right. And so the last time this happened, and I think this is where I get really excited. The last time this happened, the people that were discouraged were lied to. And a lot of them lost their shirts. But there was a guy out there that was an advocate named Richard Hart. And he said, I'm going to do something that's better. And had those people not listened to that and not hitched their wagon to Hex and not paid attention. And I respect Richard for standing his ground and saying, hey, these are the tenets of real DeFi, and we're going to defend those. To be where we are today and to see, I've talked to a lot of these folks that have made a lot of money in Hex, and literally they're like, this is the greatest opportunity, this bear market. This is what we get to do it again. And to me, there's so many options for you, whereas there wasn't before. Exactly. And I feel like there's a really good community, a lot of people sharing good information. You have to be discerning, though. And so, I'm excited. To me, it's the Pulse chain is going to have so many opportunities on it. And here you're already out on Ethereum, and you're going to get the copy on the Pulse chain.
Exactly. And many more. So, listen, I'm interested in your idea of creating Texas as a separate country. I want to know all about this because my limited knowledge, Texas was a separate country. What happened? What happened?
There you go. Well, here's how this all started. So I've been in the nonprofit space for the last 22 years, and I've worked with all kinds of folks who have endowments. And so obviously I got into crypto and, learned all about crypto in many different ways, but Richard Hart really appealed to me, and I really understood DeFi. And when he did the SENS Foundation, remember the pulse sacrificing when you could give to the SENS Foundation?
Yeah.
I was really intrigued by that because I was doing education to my marketplace, which is professionals who are nonprofit professionals. I was doing education for them. And I did a slide on this fundraising effort from this guy named Richard Hart and the SENS Foundation, and that they had raised, at that time it was $19 million in like 19 days. And I said, look what's happening in the system of fundraising is that here's an organization that went from having nothing to $19 million. And so when I saw that happen, I was so impressed. And I said, you know what, this is going to change everything for nonprofits. Well, nonprofits use endowments. And because Richard had seen, he took hacks, he said, we're going to mimic an existing financial product so people can understand time deposit and crypto. People have to have these handles in their mind to say, okay, what's it like? And so we looked at the endowment contract, the concept of that. And we said, what makes an endowment work? It's where an organization raises a bunch of money, puts it into an account, and does sound investments. Those investments create an interest income that basically is cash flow for their operations. And so when I looked at, could we mimic the endowment for individuals and for organizations, that's when this idea started. Well, I read the book Texan, which the Texas nationalist movement, guy named Daniel Miller wrote this book called Texan. And because of what's happening in the political sphere of things, I realized we talked to our attorneys and they said, you cannot do a sacrifice. You cannot accept money. It's just way too risky. And they would not allow us to do that. I said, well, what if we encourage people to give to a nonprofit and we don't accept any money? They said, that's fine. Everybody knows what a donation is, but your airdrop has to be free. A no value airdrop.
Absolutely.
You cannot sell anything. And so the beauty of that is what came out of this is we just finished a 90-day donation campaign encouraging people to give to the Texas nationalist movement. Well over $1 million was given to them, their best fundraising effort in this time period. And they are working towards a referendum on the ballot of Texas in November of 2023 that would reassert Texas as an independent nation. Like Brexit from the European Union, here we have Texas from the American Union. Well, the most recent poll showed that 66% of Texans, likely voters, would vote for Texas independence, and it only takes 50% plus one. So this work that this organization's been doing for the last 15 years is being supported by crypto. We've embodied an endowment into our contract so that people can literally stake to earn interest. We've simplified that process and given them the ability to scrape their interest off at no penalty. And now we have a mechanism for helping people have an investment tool that can potentially free them from debt slavery, like we're interested in doing, but also supports an organization that we're on the cusp of becoming a new nation again. And that, to me,
this is what we said earlier on. We are at a confluence in history right now where technology and historical events have converged at this moment in time to make these sort of things happen. I mean, my understanding is, though, right now, Texas has the ability to split itself into 5 separate states. If you did that, is that true? I mean, if you did that, you'd get 5 more votes. Is that true? Is that correct?
Yeah, and that's not currently what's on the table, but it's, people have talked about that, of having 5 different states.
But you don't need any approval to do that. You can just go ahead and do it, right?
Well, right now there is actually CalExit, which is the northern part of California looking to separate as the 51st state. And so I don't know a lot about that effort. Certainly the one that we're doing in Texas here is that Texas itself would be independent. And that we do have that right. And if you look at Article 1, Section 2 of the Texas Constitution, it says that you may abolish change this form of government. So all of the political power is inherent in the people. And, that's reflected in the Declaration of Independence as well. But the big thing about that is...
Yeah, we helped you write it, by the way.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of...
So Rodney helped you write it.
That's right. Well, actually, one of the greatest writers came out of the Caribbean. Alexander Hamilton.
Exactly.
Yeah, he wrote the majority of the Federalist Papers.
So how does the money from the Texas token, how does that help the separation movement then?
Yeah, so obviously, in politics, marketing's everything. And they're a civic organization, so they're not a political organization, they're bipartisan. And they do education around basically getting people out to vote, being aware of this right that we have. And it's only grown over the last 15 years. They've been doing this for 15 years. And so the fundraising effort for them is to support and promote Texit, which is Texas leaving the Union. And it's gained a tremendous amount of steam. And now everything that's happening in the world is really making this, in my opinion, inevitable in 2023. And it's going to become national news. But the big thing here is, the big story is that I've been committed to tokenizing communities. I think the future of the blockchain is taking people who already are galvanized around a current cause, a community of people that's already together, and unlocking value for them by giving them crypto as a gift, basically a contract that they can leverage. There's 435,000 people in the Texas nationalist movement and 30 million people in Texas. And so when I look at onboarding people, that's what I see. I see an open door for new people to get into crypto that could literally change their lives, like we've seen for OG Hexagons, for example. But this is the Texan token for people who believe in freedom and sovereignty. It reflects an endowment, and you can take it or leave it, just like PZEN or anything else. But
exactly. If you're interested in having a separate country, then go for it. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Interesting point. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's what we're up to. And then our next project, utilizing the contract that we've created, is actually in the Philippines. And so there's a group of about 1,000 churches that's the core audience and organization there. And so we're going to be launching that here in the next couple months. But that's really what I'm all about. I want to see people that are in poverty. I want to see people that are in bondage. I want to see people be freed by DeFi. And so we're doing more than just Texas independence. We're trying to tokenize communities that already exist. And we believe that, that's how you get people into crypto, is that you have to take people who know nothing about it and give them a reason, rather than, in my opinion, a lot of derivatives kind of reshuffling the deck in our current community. We need new people in, and this is a way in which I think we can bring thousands upon thousands of people new, not recycled, new.
Totally.
And that's
absolutely. And the most common thing is that you need to free people from, as you say, debt slavery. They need to be able to make money while they sleep. We know this. We know the old adage: if you don't make money while you sleep, you will work until you die. We need a way out. Going back to the Texas independence movement, you may not know, but I was also involved in an independence movement for a smaller country, but in a similar vein. And you may or may not have heard, but we have, at this very moment in time, a separate country called the Global State of Waveland. The Global State of Waveland. And I was involved at the very first moment that came into being. And here's what this is all about.
Wow.
In the middle of nowhere, literally in the middle of the North Atlantic, there is a tiny, tiny, tiny rock called Rocco. And way back in the 1980s, or early 90s, whatever, I think it was 1980s now, it was being claimed by those damn Vikings. And so a certain group of people got together, and a very, very brave and very well-known former SAS soldier volunteered to plonk himself on that island and claim it.
Wow.
And I was the guy that was tasked to go and film him.
No kidding.
in my little aeroplane, yes. And so we took, in the UK, we used to have what's called the ITV News. So I was with the ITV News crew. We went out and we filled in planting the flag. And that still exists today. Although the Vikings still contended. I don't know why.
Well, it's amazing. There's been a number of those kind of micronations that have popped up. I remember there was one that was a tech startup which was called, I think, Sealand or something like
Zealand,
that.
yes, exactly.
It was
Yes.
on it was on a
Is it Denmark?
aircraft platform. Yeah,
Denmark.
yeah. It was off into the.
Oh, no. I think I think the one that you're talking about is Rose Island. Rose Island was built on a platform. It's built off the Amalfi Coast by a group of Italians who, first of all, wanted to have a bar where they could just drink all the time. Of course, pasta and wine 24 hours a day without police interference. That's how that idea came along. But then everybody said, well, hang on a second. We keep paying all these taxes and duties and we're living here. Let's just create a separate country. And he very nearly succeeded. It was only because of the fear of the United Nations that if they let him do it, then everybody would do it, that they actually stopped it. And the sad thing is that the Italian government tasked the Italian Navy to go and actually blow it up illegally, I might add.
Oh, man. Yeah. Well, and there's the powers that be. One of the things I think people don't relate to is the fact that Texas right now is the 9th largest economy in the world.
Right.
And people don't realize how substantial Texas is.
Yeah.
If Texas was independent, it would be the 9th largest, and it's only growing. I mean, we've got folks like Tesla here. We're likely going to have Twitter here as a headquarters. We've got, Facebook moving in, Caterpillar. We've got an unbelievable amount of resources, our own electric grid. I mean, so many different things that make it a deep water port, oil and gas, all of those things, and an independent spirit and a history of being our own country back in 1836. And so, the coin or the token Texan is not associated with the Texas nationalist movement. We just decided that we were going to help tokenize that community. So we independently have come alongside them, partnered with them to give a free gift to the people that donate to them.
Yeah,
we just finished
an
that
inbuilt
up,
community,
and now,
and you've given them a way of doing it. Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah. And now, actually,
sorry, I was going to say I'd love to continue this conversation some more, but I think I was telling you earlier on we're very excited here today that we've got, for the very first time, government water flowing onto Conrad Island, and I just have to go and make sure that we're saving as much of it as possible. So I think we're all on the same wavelength here. It is time for change. We are at a great confluence of history. Cryptocurrency is the way forward. Choose wisely. Back one horse. One coin is going to suit you better than any other. There's no question about that. And no point fudding out code. Code is code. There is no such thing as scarcity. So, Crypto Heartbeat, thank you so much for inviting me on and giving me a platform to say a few words. I will say Slanjivar to everybody who's listened in so far, and I'm afraid I do have to jump out. So forgive me, and we'll talk again.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right, take care. Wow.